the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the M-E-T-S Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got...
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Spring Training Talk live right here with my boy CP. How is everybody doing today on this Monday, March 18th? That's right, 10 days away until opening day. Finally, we went through the nonsense of off-season craziness. We went through the back and forth of this off-season sucks, this off-season is good, this off-season is eh. But we are finally getting closer and closer to final roster spots that are still available, some bench spots, some bullpen spots, maybe even a new DH. We shall see, but there's a lot of things to talk about right now. But first, we're going to say, what up to Chris? What up to Chris? I love that. I love that flag right there. I have one of those, actually. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. I finally get to show off my flag now. I'm in a different setup. This weekend was a pain in terms of moving. I didn't get to get any content out for the Mets or anything else, but nonetheless, I am all settled in. I got my new setup. I'm ready to rock. 10 days away from opening day, like you said. I see people in the chat. They're excited and they're happy for baseball. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you for spending your Monday evenings with us. It's great to almost be back, Rob. It's so great. So let's get it.
Absolutely, man. So again, well, like Chris said, like I said, 10 days away. It gets exciting. Opening day is always a special day. It provides hope for every fan base. No matter if you think you're going to win 70 games or 110 games, it gives you hope because crazy things happen in sports, and we know how baseball is nowadays. Anything can happen. Just make the damn playoffs. So let's start by, I would say, talking about moving. I'm moving in a month from now. I am finally taking my quote unquote talents to Daytona Beach. I am moving to Daytona Beach, Florida in about a month. So I'm going to be probably where Chris is, going crazy and not doing some content for a few days, even though I'm driving down the East Coast. Down south, I will be moving to Daytona Beach, Florida, and everybody's like, why Daytona Beach? Well, it just happens to be there, and it worked out in that way. But good news is that I'll be in warmer weather, and I don't have to deal with damn snow, hurricanes eventually, occasionally. But hey, you know, it could be worse. So let's get started talking about our Mets. Besides the annoyance of moving, so 10 days away from opening day, we know our opening day starter. We really don't know who's going to get those bullpen spots, even though there's a few guys that actually showed up and performed well. The DH spot, I still think is up in the air. I really don't know. Like, you can't say 10 days from now, who is the opening day DH on opening day? It's a question mark. And that's a huge problem. And I'm trying to figure out why has my poor dying up on top of the hill JD Martinez situation has not happened yet, and I feel like it's going to happen because it's an embarrassment at this point. Just dying on the river, basically, just rolling it out there on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, everywhere I go. Before I start a conversation, I say JD Martinez, and then people are like, again, Rob. Well, that's where I'm going to go with. Before we get into the other topics, I just want to get your thoughts on these roster spots that are obviously available, and this quote unquote competition at third base that is not really a competition because nobody seems like they really want this third base job. What if Vientos, what if Beatty is still performing like this by the time final rosters happen? What do you think is the biggest problem that this team is going to have at least 10 days until opening day right now? Is it the bullpen spots that you're kind of, on the fence about with some guys, or you're not really worried about the bullpen? Is it the DH? Is it third base? It kind of like relates to each other when it comes to DH and third base because it could impact those positions. What do you think, Chris?
Listen, Rob, I love you, but like I can't talk DH anymore. I simply can't. Like I've wanted JD Martinez on this team for so long. You know me. I was clamoring for Justin Turner. I wanted the Mets to address DH. I wanted to have a competent DH rolled out there. And I let go of that dream like weeks ago. And I know that Heyman keeps resurfacing. He keeps on telling you all and everybody in this fan base that the Mets and JD Martinez have mutual interest. I'm sorry. I don't buy it. If it happens, great, cherry on top. If it doesn't, I'll say I told you so because I just simply can't for the life of me, especially with what Steve Cohen just said, literally, I believe in a sit-down interview. I forgot where he said it, but he was talking about letting the younger players play. He was saying that they had a plan all along and they're just sticking to it. So that tells me everything I need to know about the DH spot. And that's how I've been thinking the last couple of weeks. What I don't know is the bullpen, right? That has always been the question mark in terms of who's going to round out this bullpen. Shintaro Fujinami, I said it on one of my live streams. I'll say it again. I don't think Shintaro Fujinami is going to make this opening day roster. I simply don't. He has options available. He's been a little bit shaky in spring training. He's had his flashes of brilliance, but he's also had his rockiness. I believe over the weekend, amidst my whole moving situation, I did see his stat line. It wasn't pretty. A lot of people were kind of bugging out about that. It just is. It comes with the growing pains of the project that Shintaro Fujinami is as a pitcher. Last year, obviously, we know what the ERA was. We know the control issues were there. And I just don't think it's like feasible to expect different out of him, especially not right away. Let Jeremy Hefner get his hands on him. Let him sort of mold him into the pitcher that he wants Jeremy Hefner wants Shintaro Fujinami to be. And that's not going to be until a couple months down the road. So I really do think he's starting off in Syracuse. So who takes his spot? Well, we'll talk about Quintana here in just a second. On that day that he got rocked, a lot of other guys got rocked as well. Austin Adams, a reliever, got rocked as well. He gave up a couple earned runs. I believe it's like 3 or 4 earned runs. A couple other guys that have looked pretty stellar so far. You got to talk about your Johan Ramirez's. You got to talk about your Michael Tonkins. So it really is sort of a luck of the draw situation about who takes these final bullpen spots. But what I can tell you is I'm leaning closer and closer and closer. Well, I don't think it's even a secret anymore because I believe Joey Lucchesi, amidst my whole moving situation, got sent down to minor league camp. So that by default probably is going to give Jose Butto one of those roster spots. I mean, with the way Jose Butto has been throwing the rock in spring training, you cannot deny him a roster spot, even if he has one option left available. You simply can't do it. So I'd look at the vet options in the bullpen, but Rob, I can't talk JD Martinez. I'm going to leave that up to you. I simply just can't do it.
Well, you know what I was going to do with all the topics? I was just going to put J and then D and then Mar and then T and then Ez, and I was going to make that as a whole topic. But I was going to not, bore everybody with JD Martinez, but until he signs somewhere else, I think he's going to be a New York Met, even if that's March or June or May or April. But you're right about that. And you know what? The difference with the bullpen going into opening day is that it's hard to worry about it when you got so many different arms that are capable of filling those spots for people who are not performing, right? Fujinami's probably going to go to the minors, but you got Ramirez, like you said, Tonkin, like you said. You heard Nate Lavender, who's been really good this spring. There's a lot of guys that, it's plug and play with the bullpen. The Mets didn't even have that last year at all. It was, we're in trouble, no replacement. Now I'm not talking about replacing Edwin Diaz. The Mets did that with Robinson. Problem is, they couldn't fill that Robinson hole. They couldn't fill that Ottavino slot. They couldn't fill that Raley spot. That was the problem last year. Now I feel like you can plug and play anybody in this bullpen, and if they don't work out, you just plug in somebody else. Somebody's going to catch lightning in a bottle, because that's how bullpens work in Major League Baseball now. So I do completely appreciate the amount of arms that Stearns gave us during the offseason, even though people made jokes about the LOL Mets, about guys that you don't even hear of a lot, and Austin Adams, another one. So it goes back to the same thing where it's like depth is important, and it's a lot more important nowadays when the bullpen is so heavily relied on in Major League Baseball, where the average pitcher goes 5 innings, not much more than that. So you need your bullpen to go to the other 4 plus. And that's where I think the Mets really have done a good job. And you're right about Jose Butto. He's been really good in spring, and it feels like he's finally become from a thrower to a pitcher. And I talk about that all the time, that there's not enough guys that become pitchers. They're just throwers, and they just throw as hard as they can, and they never develop into the pitchers, situational pitching, where to throw certain pitches at certain times, location, and everything like that. Jose Butto finally found, at least looks like he found something, and is becoming a pitcher, unlike his first ever start where he looked like he was just a thrower. So Jose Butto could take that spot, since Joey Lucchesi is sent to minor league camp, which is a big disappointment, because I thought Joey Lucchesi was going to make a real big run for that 5th spot, and it just didn't materialize because he didn't come into camp in shape, and it just felt like he's just not in it. It seems like he just, if they're not giving him a spot without earning it, he just don't want to do it. I don't know what it is with Joey Lucchesi, because he does have the stuff. So let's talk about Jose Quintana, since he's going to be the opening day starter. I believe he's going to have
one second before we go to Quintana on the bullpen.
Yeah.
One, I think a name that we completely glossed over that definitely is going to make this team, and I completely forgot about him until I literally just like a light bulb went on my head. Sean Reed-Foley. He's making the team.
Ooh,
I would
yeah.
have to assume he doesn't have any options available, so I don't think the Mets are just going to let him go to waivers. So I think that he's definitely a shoo-in for this bullpen. And Joey Lucchesi did have an option, so it surprised me that they sent him down as early as they did, but it didn't at the same time, because it just looked like he didn't come to camp right, not in the right mindset, maybe not the right stuff. So he has an option. No harm, no foul. Back to AAA. Okay, sorry, I had to mention Sean Reed-Foley. We have to give him his credit. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point. SRF is and Joel just said SRF. Yeah, absolutely. You got to look at guys that don't have options, because that's probably the guys that are probably going to get the first jump at things, and they get the first chance. Because if they work out, great. If they don't, they might get released. They might just get put on waivers, and somebody else comes in. So that's a good job by you with Sean Reed-Foley, who's also looked really good. And he throws hard, and he got really good stuff as well. Let's see if he can put it together. But he has been this spring, and even the little bit of spurts that he had with the Mets, he's looked good. When he looked bad is when he actually was hurt. So good job by Chris right there with Sean Reed-Foley. So Jose Quintana, opening day starter, got rocked his last time out. I believe he's going to get one more start before opening day. I think it's in like a couple of days, sometime around the end of this week, I believe. So Jose Quintana, everybody freaked out, like you just said, Chris, earlier. Everybody got rocked in that game, it seemed like. But Jose Quintana, everybody's worried about, because he should be Mr. Reliable. He's the guy that's going to give your team a chance to win. He's going to throw 5 or 6 innings, not shock the world, open up some eyes, but he's going to give your team a chance to win. Are you a little worried about Jose Quintana? Because he hasn't really looked good in spring. I'm not going to say I'm worried too much, and I'll give my opinion after yours, but are you worried about Jose Quintana seeing that his spring hasn't been really good? Or are you just going to be like, you know what? I trust the veteran because I know what he's done in the past.
I don't like he hasn't had a overwhelmingly good spring. I wouldn't call it like a bad spring. Listen, I'm not worried about Jose Quintana. The guy's 36 at the end of the day. He's a vet. He's obviously the southpaw. They went with the safe option in terms of giving him that opening day nod. We had this whole conversation back and forth about who should get that opening day nod. We talked about McGill, who also, by the way, got rocked in that same day on the opposite side of the game in the other game against the Nationals. We'll probably talk about him in just a second as well. Or Severino. I wanted Severino, but you know what? They wanted to go the safe route. It's fine. I trust in Quintana. He's not going to blow hitters away. He's not throwing 94, 95, 96. He's more 91 to 92. He's going to have and with that 91 and 92, if he doesn't have his location by some stretch of the imagination, yes, he's going to get rocked at the major league level. If you throw 91 and 92 miles per hour, you need to locate those pitches. If any day he's not locating, he's going to get rocked. But what makes Jose Quintana so good is that he does locate his pitches very well more often than not. We saw it last season when he came back from injury. He had a hell of a second half when he came back, which I believe was the hamstring injury. He's a pro's pro, like Joel is saying in the comment section. I'm fine with the decision, to be honest with you, and I'm not worried that he got rocked against the Marlins. I'm not at all. Like I said, he's done this before. He's been here before, and we know what to expect out of Jose Quintana, right? When you look at this rotation, I think the two consistent pieces of this rotation outside of Kodai Senga is Jose Quintana and Adrian Hauser. I think they are going to be your rocks in this rotation. Luis Severino, we know, can be phenomenal, or he can be a shell of himself and produce something similar to last year. Same thing with Sean Manaea. He could be really good, or he could be quite bad. Like, there's no in between with those guys, it seems, whereas Jose Quintana and Adrian Hauser are a little bit more consistent, especially if you look at seasons prior. So, no, I'm not worried about Jose Quintana. What did he give up? Like 4, 5, 6 earned runs. I think it was 4 earned runs against the Marlins, correct? Doesn't matter what it was. His stuff wasn't working that day. He's going to be fine. I urge you all not to panic about Quintana.
Yeah, I agree. It goes with any type of veteran, position player, pitcher. It doesn't really matter. I think a lot of these veterans, especially when it gets later in spring, they're worried about getting their reps up, their pitches up, stretching themselves out. Same thing with the Lindors, who, some of the guys that are batting 200, under 200. I don't worry about the veterans. They're just trying to get their reps in. They're just trying to get their at-bats in. They're just trying to stay healthy for opening day. I don't worry about them. They're not going balls to the wall. And that's what always alarms me with guys we're going to talk about like Vientos and Dady, who are trying to fight it out for a position. Those are the guys that need to show something in spring training and go balls to the wall when it comes to doing what you need to do in spring to make the opening day roster. Those guys know they're going to make the roster. They have a spot on the roster, so they're not too concerned about that. So when it comes to veterans like Quintana and like Hauser, who are the two guys, like he says, are guys that are professionals, are going to go out there every fifth day, give your team a chance to win. They're not going to wow you. They're going to do their job. And when your team does their job, or players do their job, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to have a chance to actually win. So Quintana, don't worry. I think he's going to be fine. I think, for all we know, he was working on a pitch. And again, 91 to 93, as long as you know how to pitch, is more than enough. You got to, get that ball, let her high. A lot of batters nowadays are vulnerable, let her high with the fastball, regardless of the speed of how hard you throw. So that's what Quintana does. If you looked at it last year when he came back, that's what he was doing. He was living above the letters and using his breaking ball off speed pitches, below the knees. And that's a successful pitcher when you can do that. And that's what he did last year when he came back from injury. All right, let's talk about Vientos once again, because Vientos showed power in the last game. He had a 3-run bomb. It looked pretty. The swing was beautiful. But the same things that I have a problem with Mark Vientos, power is not the issue. I know we can hit home runs. That's the whole reason why people, I guess, believe in him, is because of the power. But here's the problem. He's still hovering around that 200 average. He's not hitting against major league pitching for the most part. It's mostly minor leaguers or fringe guys. and he's batting 200. And the things that, even when he was hitting for power and average in the minors, all levels of the minor leagues, there was two things that Mets organization worried about with Vientos: walks that weren't a big thing for him. He doesn't see the pitches very well. He doesn't walk enough. And the second thing is strikeouts. He still strikes out at a too much, way too much. 45 at bats, 15 strikeouts, 2 walks, batting just over 200. Home runs, I know somebody was saying that I think every 11 at bats he hits a home run. That's 40 plus home runs. He's not doing that. All right, we all know that. If he does that, great. I mean, bat him behind Alonso. We've solved our problem that we've had for the last couple of years. So the problem that I have with Vientos is the same problems that the organization has with Vientos. He still hasn't limited his strikeouts. He didn't increase his walks. The average is still terrible, but the power is there. Where's the encouragement that you will give me, CP, even if you have any for yourself? That's my concern. So what's the encouragement that you might see or you already seen from Mark Vientos so far 10 days before opening day?
I mean, I will say that I don't know if the right word's encouragement. Like, I know that he hasn't sold me, he hasn't sold you, he hasn't sold a lot of people. I think that everybody that just knows the situation of what the front office has told us is just pretty much content with literally just shooing him in for the DH. And that's all it is, because we're going off of what the front office has told us. For better or for worse, I don't know. We will see very shortly. I think the notion of him competing for a third base job is pretty much dead. I really can't see defensively him being at third base over Brett Beatty. Brett Beatty's played pretty decent third base in my estimation defensively so far this spring training. So I don't think he's going to be in the running for that. I do think that he gets a lot of at-bats, though, if he continues on this trend, taken away from a counterpart like maybe a G-Man Choi, who's had also a great spring training and cracks the roster over a DJ Stewart. I think that G-Man Choi, him being the veteran, him actually walking, G-Man Choi knows the strike zone. He takes his walks when he's due for one. And so I think that if Vientos' trend continues, then you'll see a lot of at-bats taken away, more so than we would have hoped for. Listen, I'm not going to lie to you. All the projections that I've seen out of Mark Vientos have him as a platoon-type bat anyways. They don't have him as an everyday DH the way that a lot of Mets fans really have, I guess, hoped Vientos would turn out. You just said it, 15 strikeouts and 45 at-bats, more or less. That's 33% on the strikeout rate. That's exactly where he's going to be at. Anywhere between 28 and 33% is where he's been at and where he's going to continue to be at. You look at his swing plane. His swing didn't get any shorter. I'm not saying that it should get any shorter. All I'm saying is that he is, like you said, more or less long ball or bust. I would love if he introduced maybe some gap-to-gap power and maybe shortened up the swing a little bit just so he can hit the gaps more efficiently. But nonetheless, if that's not going to be the case, we can just hope and pray for 30 home run season, be content with 220, 230, and that's exactly what we'll get out of Mark Vientos. That's the trajectory that we're seeing right now. Yes, he is like top 3 in hard hit rate in spring training so far. That's great. He's got like what, 4 to 5 home runs under his belt in spring training so far. Fantastic. When there's a crucial situation in 2024 coming up with runners in scoring position and you really need Mark Vientos to come through with 2 outs, are you confident in Mark Vientos doing that? I will probably say no. I'm not going to lie to you. But at the end of the day, Rob, the cards that we've been dealt with this front office and how they view this season, just like being developmental, we're going to have to accept that. And this whole time that I've been just talking about the DH situation and Mark Vientos this past offseason, everybody should know my thoughts and opinions surrounding Mark Vientos. He's not going to be here next year. I know that, and everybody else should know that as well. There's no positional fit on this team long term that Mark Vientos is going to mold into. There's just simply not. And so what the Mets are doing here, and by any stretch of the imagination, they're trying to get some sort of trade value back for Mark Vientos. And that's why you're going to continue to see him out there on the major league field. Is it going to piss me off if he continues to strike out and continue to get at bats? Yes. Is it going to piss you off, Rob? Yes, absolutely. But I think that's what we're in for in 2024. So that's all I'm saying. And a lot of people can be shocked about me saying that Mark Vientos is going to be a trade piece. I've said this before the season even started. Before even 2023 ended, I said he is now going to be on this team in 2025. I'm very confident in that still too. I don't think the Mets have any confidence in him long term. If we're talking about JD Martinez at this point of the offseason on March 18th, 2024, and the whole fan base is clamoring for JD Martinez, like there's no chance this kid sees the light of day in 2025. Because yes, the front office can definitely be stubborn and stick to their plan that they've had all offseason, but they're not naive. When other DHs come onto the market, when this lineup gets better, Mark Vientos is not going to be here. And I think that everybody should know that. And unless you don't want to say it, yes, I'm still sticking behind Mark Vientos and I'm supporting him. Just because I'm saying that he's going to be traded next season doesn't mean I'm not supporting him in 2024. I'd like the Mets to get a better package back for him, quite frankly. So of course I'm going to root for him. But that's my line of thinking, Rob. For like hands down, all honesty, that's my thinking.
Yeah, look, I'm going to root for him because he's wearing the Mets on his chest. Just because I don't like him doesn't mean I'm not going to root for him. I hope he hits 50 home runs. I know that's like, wishful thinking, but yeah, that's the problem that I'm continuing to have. But you go back to the organization not being naive. Here's the problem. I even think the organization knows that Vientos isn't it. So, and they're telling you that it isn't it because they're still having conversations with Boris and Martinez. They were the finalists for JD Davis. And then they continue to tell you that they're not trying to take at bats from Vientos, yet being a finalist, not for JD Martinez, but for JD Davis, was going to take at bats away from Mark Vientos, playing third and DHing. So here's the thing that I don't understand what Mark Vientos and what the Mets are telling you, and this is why I think they're blowing smoke up all of our asses in a good way. And I don't want to go back to JD Martinez, but it keeps on bringing me back to that only because they were finalists for JD Davis because it was much cheaper than JD Martinez, who was going to take at bats away from Vientos and from Beatty, which is the exact opposite. David Stearns and Steve Cohen and others in the organization have said that they want to give as much at bats to Vientos and Beatty as possible, specifically Vientos. Getting JD Davis or being a finalist, and they were clearly trying to get him, they just couldn't guarantee him playing time like Oakland. If they were going to say that and blowing smoke up our asses and saying we want to give as many at-bats as possible to Vientos, yet trying all you can to get JD Davis, who was going to take at-bats away from Vientos, basically you're telling me two different things. So I think they're telling the media, they're telling the fans what they're telling you, which is obviously false because you continue to see the same thing over and over again because they are still talking to JD Martinez. Even if it doesn't happen, they're still probably trying to get the price down. And they were trying to get JD Davis. So I'm going to ask you for this last time, Chris. What do they really mean? Because you're talking about them being naive. They're clearly not naive. They know, I don't even think they believe Vientos is going to be here. So why give him at bats? What has he proven that he hasn't already proved? I don't think he's a very good player. He's positionless. He can't play a position, which is already a problem. So if you can't play a position, there's only one thing that can open up some eyes within an organization, and that is his bat. And he hasn't shown enough to basically be a part of this team long term. So I'll ask you, JD Davis was almost going to be a Met. He was going to take at bats from Vientos. Martinez will take at bats from Vientos, but Vientos can actually play third base a little bit, and you can platoon third base, just like the Mets love to platoon DH. Platoon the third base position when there's a lefty on the mound, Vientos. When there's a righty on the mound, Beatty. Why don't you do that? So what are the Mets telling you? Are they blowing smoke up our asses? Or are they just saying that to save face and saying we're trying to give at bats to these guys? But on the other side of the phone, they're talking to guys that are available that can take at bats from those guys.
I don't think that listen, I'm gonna say it just like this. I don't think like Mark Vientos will be your DH when there's a lefty on the mound in 2024 for the first half. I simply This is my take, to be honest with you, when you talk about development versus trying to win in 2024. I think the Mets are hoping and praying that even while playing Mark Vientos and Brett Baty, that they somehow contend for a playoff spot. They're just trying to get by the skin of their teeth with Mark Vientos and Brett Baty. I don't think there's any way that they consider bringing JD Martinez on for a deal that's north of $15 million. I really don't think so, because of the tax implications on that as well. And like I said, David Stearns and Steve Cohen have been very honest about that. So if it comes to a point by the trade deadline, because like we've said time and time again, Rob, like this is a wait and see scenario in the first half, right? Yeah. So what would it do for the New York Mets to go out there and spend $30 million with the tax and whatever salary they give JD Martinez? Let's just call it $15 million deal, and the tax puts it at like $27 million, somewhere around there. Like the league knows at that point that the Mets, if they're not in playoff contention, they're going to want to flip JD Martinez, right? Yep. And they're going to make the New York Mets do what the New York Mets have done in seasons prior, primarily last season at the trade deadline, pay the majority of that contract just to get a larger prospect haul back for JD Martinez. And I quite simply think that the New York Mets know that they are not World Series contenders. So they don't want to push the envelope that on a move that's going to make them marginally better, right? That's what I think. And you can agree with it, and you can realize the plan, and you can say that they're sticking to the plan, which is the boat that I'm in, or you can say this is bogus. 2024, no matter what, should be a win now year, and you should make your team the best possible team, and that means going out and getting JD Martinez. But just because you think the Mets should go and be at the top of whatever they want to do roster construction wise, getting JD Martinez doesn't mean the front office is thinking that way. So I'm saying that the Mets really probably aren't confident in their chances to reach a World Series in 2024. And I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to sort of realize that. And I do think that they're not going to push that envelope of getting JD Martinez for marginal gain. That's going to piss a lot of people off. That already has pissed a lot of people off. And that's basically made people call David Stearns small market. That has made people turn on Steve Cohen and calling him cheap. And I think that there's just a larger overall strategic plan taking into consideration 2025 versus being a win now team in 2024. I truly think the Mets are hoping and praying with what they trot out there in 2024, what they have right now, whether it's Mark Vientos, Ji-Man Choi, Trace Thompson, whoever. I think they're hoping and praying that they maintain competitiveness with those guys and just sort of stay afloat with those guys that they have internally right now. And if it gets to a point, like you said, where it's a wait and see, we actually have a chance to grab that wild card spot, then they maybe trade for a bat and use some of their prospect haul that they got last season in a deal. But other than that, I think the way the roster is right now is how it's going to shake out at the start of opening day and in the first couple months.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that plan when they actually are doing that plan 100%. They're clearly deviating from the plan because, again, I keep on going back to the same thing. They were on JD Davis as one of the finalists. They were, quote unquote, talking to Martinez and Boris. And I do think if the price tag gets under $15 million, I think that's when they'll strike. Maybe they're waiting for that. But I felt like their plan made a lot of sense. I think it's a first half plan. Let's see where we are. If we're in contention, great. Whatever the numbers of games back, or if we're in a playoff spot or right next to a playoff spot, I think I said it last year. If you're within 4 or 5 games of a playoff spot, I think the Mets would have kept a lot of the guys that they traded and maybe we added to the team. This is a first half plan, wait and see approach, which I'm fine. I was fine with. I was fine with it early on. We had a ton of Mets roundtable talks, hot stove talks throughout the offseason. I'm fine with that plan. But when you start deviating from the plan during the offseason, when you continue to say to the media, to the fans, we are sticking to our plan, but they're not sticking to our plan because they were aggressively pursuing a guy that was taking at bats from their plan of certain people on their roster. And that's what I don't understand. So I don't know what their plan is anymore. Is it, oh, let's see if we can get better while sticking to the plan? Because JD Davis I don't think is much better than Mark Vientos or Brett Beatty. He might be a little bit better, but not enough to, change it to, an 80-win team to an 86-win team. So their plan is deviated to the point where their actions going after certain people that are still available is my main problem with the plan now. Because the plan isn't the plan that I was okay with that they were talking about after the trade deadline last year into this offseason, Chris. That's my problem.
So, but my only pushback on that is that I don't think, even if they went and signed JD Davis, you look at what he just signed for, you're talking about $2.5 million that he went to the A's. And you're also talking about a guy in JD Davis that can play third base. JD Martinez doesn't fit the bill on either of those descriptions. He's going to be $15 million north of that, where in 2.5 versus 15 million is a large discrepancy. And then also JD Martinez is not going to play the field. He doesn't have an option to play the field, right? He's not going to play third base, whereas JD Davis would have if the Mets landed him. So I don't think that going after and being a finalist and talking to JD Davis before he inevitably signed with the A's was deviating away from the plan, because when you talk about the situation of JD Davis versus JD Martinez, it's two different situations, right? Yeah. Like, if you're actually talking to JD Martinez right now and you're serious about bringing him on, yes, absolutely. That means you're deviating away from the plan. But I think more so a signing of JD Davis would have meant that the Mets aren't confident in any of their righty bats on the bench, like a Trace Thompson, if you will, etc. But also, he wouldn't have just taken away at bats from Vientos. He would have been in the running to play third base and taken at bats from Beatty. So you would have been talking about a platoon at third base, a lefty-righty matchup of JD Davis and Brett Beatty. But does that kind of make sense on my pushback on that? Like, I don't think that talking to JD Davis means that they are deviating away from that plan.
Well, I think they were. I get what you're saying, but the deviation of their plan is kind of, I'm skeptical on it because of what they're doing. Because, like, JD Davis isn't a Met because they couldn't promise him an everyday starting job. That was the reason why. He even gave an interview to whatever Bay Area radio station that they spoke to him. He says the Mets weren't guaranteeing him a position, guaranteeing playing time either at DH or third base. They were signing him for third base or DH, whatever it was. The fact of the matter is, no matter who it was, their plan, give at bats to their young guys, which we all assume were Beatty and Vientos, who they're talking about. He was taking at bats from somebody, regardless of if he was going to be on the bench or not. If somebody doesn't play well, say if he comes into spring training and they signed him a week ago, if Beatty and Vientos are playing the same way offensively, JD Davis, if he's looking good, is going to take that spot from somebody if he's playing well. So that at-bats are going by the wayside. That's why the deviation. And Martinez is another story because he's not a position player. He's just a specific DH. Like you said earlier, with JD Martinez, though, he is a guy that you can flip at the trade deadline if you're not playing well. So that's the other thing that you can look at, too. They have it. That's another plan. They can go through their first half plan of let's see approach. And if it doesn't go well, they're going to flip every one of these guys that have 1-year deals. We all talked about this throughout the offseason when they were signing 1-year deals. So I do think that JD Davis was going to take at bats away, regardless if he was going to be on the bench or not. Because if one guy falters and doesn't perform well, he's going to take those at bats away. So if Vientos struggles or Beatty struggles, and there's nobody else except for DJ Stewart, Tyrone Taylor, Tate Choi is the other bench guy. Are they going to send one of those guys? They're going to put him on the bench, or they're going to send him back to the minors, and whoever's on the bench is going to take their spot, and they're going to run with it that way. You think that's what they're going to do?
Well, I see what you're saying now. So I just to make sure that I have it correct, your argument is that your plan, if you're the Mets front office, is to give these kids at bats. So why are you talking to JD Davis in the first place? Because bringing him on means at some point, whether he starts off opening day at third base or DH or not, if those kids falter, he's going to be taking away their at bats regardless. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Technically, but I'm also saying if they're saying they're gonna give the kids at bats, Beatty and Vientos, that means if they struggle, you're gonna continue to roll with them regardless of their struggles. Doesn't that make sense? You're not gonna give them at bats, and then as soon as they struggle, go to a plan B on your roster or in the minors, right? So I'm assuming that's what they were trying to do with JD Davis. And whoever else is going to be either on the roster or in the minor leagues as the next man up. So are they going to give them time if they struggle and they're really looking bad? Are they just going to keep on rolling them out like they did Daniel Vogelback? And regardless of what happens, just put them out there? Because if you're going to give them at bats, you can't take them out when they struggle because, again, you're deviating from the plan. That's why I think their plan, at least with the kids in Vientos and Beatty, is bullcrap to me, to be honest with you, because you can't talk to JD Davis, who's going to take at bats away from those two guys. Either way, regardless, no matter who's going to be playing bad, you're going to be taking at bats for them. If they're struggling and you replace them somewhat right away, you're not really looking to observe them, as Stearns wants to say, to observe them and to evaluate them, because that's not an evaluation if you're going to take them out of the lineup as soon as they're starting to struggle and hurting the team. That's what I'm trying to say.
And I'm understanding that perfectly, which is where I think JD Davis in the Mets' mind was the perfect scapegoat to say, listen, we have a backup option in place. That's why a lot of people wanted, when Gio Urshela, before he signed with the Tigers, a lot of people wanted Gio Urshela on this team. Yeah. Not to take Brett Beatty's spot, but if Brett Beatty faltered, right, and he got extended at bats, let's say we were in June, July, and Brett Beatty was struggling, then at some point I feel like you have to pull the plug, right? You can't go a full 162 with these guys batting 200 or sub 200 and just say, oh, we're still trying to give them a look. By that point, we already know that they're not it, right? And that's where I think that the Mets saw the perfect opportunity with JD Davis and was like, $2.5 million, this can't hurt us at all, because this is the perfect scapegoat, whether he plays or not, to say we had a backup option in place and we didn't just give Brett Beatty that job. And they would also be heroes if Brett Beatty went out there and performed lights out, because they're like, oh, see, we knew this kid was going to be it the whole time, right? So this is where I think the Mets are starting to we're starting to see a little bit through that quote unquote plan of them sort of, I guess, teetering on both sides of the fence. Like, hey, we want to give these guys majority at bats, but we also want to put together a competent backup just in case these guys completely crap the bed and it's June and they haven't figured it out, then we have to pull the plug eventually. I do think they're going to get that 3-month leash though, Rob. I really do. And I think a lot of Mets fans and every Mets fan should expect that. And I've been on record saying that there's no way you forego all these other options on the market and roll with Vientos and Beatty without giving them that large of a leash. I know we don't want to hear it as Mets fans, and we don't want to see that happen. I understand that. Inevitably, I think that's the situation, though.
Yeah, if they're going to give them 3 months, be on the phone with all the contending teams and say, hey, what do you want for our guys now? Because you might as well bring up all the kids. You might as well trade Pete Alonso and, hey, let's bring up, let Ryan Clifford. Hey, let's go. Bring your first base. Hey, look, Acuna. We'll give McNeil to the Mariners, who wanted him for 12 months now. Give it to him. Might as well bring up all the kids. Because if you're going to give these guys 3 months, right, last year was the time to give them all that time when you traded everybody at the deadline. right? And what did they show when they got those at bats? Not very much. So again, I think what they're doing, they're trying to save their asses. They're trying to be on both sides of the fence where the fans are not going to really get on them 100% either way. Like, oh, if Edwin Vientos looks good, look, I told you so. But look, if they're not, we got these guys over here that are backup plans that we planned for. So they're trying to save face where the entire fan base is not going to get on them. But if it's 50-50, they're okay with that. So I think to end that discussion, if it's a 3-month plan, okay, fine. But they better not take them out if they're batting 160 and they're looking terrible and look like they have done in their whatever their little major league career is. Because as soon as they take them out, they're done. Because you're not going to send them back to the minors where they can hit 350 and 20 home runs and they say, oh, they fixed them and come back and then back 170 again, like these guys have shown already. So to put that to bed, let's hope if they give them at bats and continue to do that while they're struggling, I'm on board with that plan because that's the evaluation I want to see, even though evaluation should have been last year, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt since Stearns is the new guy in town. All right, let's get to a little bit better news. Edwin Diaz, he's looked good, right? He didn't strike out everybody like his first outing. Came out with the trumpets again. Got a 1-2-3 inning. Wasn't by strikeouts, which is even makes me feel even better because he's pitching like Edwin Diaz. He looks like the version of 2022 Edwin Diaz. What do you see from Edwin Diaz so far? I don't know if he was on TV his last outing because I did miss the game. I just saw the box score. But what have you seen from Edwin Diaz? He does look healthy, Chris. Do you think he's back, or do you think that there's still a little bit of I would say like scar tissue, so to speak, in figurative speech? But what do you think of Edwin Diaz so far in his first 2 outings?
I wish I could speak more confidently on this topic because both of Edwin Diaz's outings I had to miss. I simply didn't see him actually take the mound. So I can't really speak on that. I think that we shouldn't be too quick to rush to assumptions after 2 outings. But I mean, Edwin Diaz's track record speaks for itself, especially what he did in 2022. I'm expecting nothing less out of Edwin Diaz. He seems to have just that classic bulldog mentality, like on the mound, like he wants the rock. He doesn't care if it's a 3-out save, 4-out save, or 5-out save. And I think that we're seeing that sort of energy early on. And Sanders is saying it here as well. Diaz might save 40 games this year. Hopefully the Mets put him in a position to do so.
Yeah.
That's my main concern, but that's a separate discussion. We could talk about that later on. But nonetheless, Edwin Diaz, man, I'm excited to have him back. This is like what really derailed the season last year for me, and a lot of things derailed it over the course of 162. But that injury in the World Baseball Classic before the season even started was the starting point because you don't only have one of the best closers, if not the best closer in the game of baseball, and your confidence in him closing games out in the back of your bullpen. His leadership, right? Like this is an intangible thing that a guy like Edwin Diaz is very well documented that he brings to this club.
Yeah.
Is leadership and his confidence just flows down not only to the bullpen guys but even the position players, or like that man's presence in the clubhouse in the locker room went a long way in 2022. And that's where I think a lot of wheels started to fall off even before the season started in 2023. I'm happy to have that back. And we even had discussions in the tail end of 2023 where Edwin Diaz was like sort of ready to get back on the mound, sort of not. He was throwing. He wanted to appear in the game because he was just so pumped up and so, I guess, down that he missed the whole entire season. But we were like, pump the brakes. We don't want to see you right now. We need to save you in this lost season for 2024. And I'm happy that he's finally getting to display and get back on track and just pick up where he left off, really, because he left off on an elite marker. I didn't get a chance to see his first 2 outings. I heard 1, 2, 3 struck out the side the first time around. It's good to see a little bit more diversity in how he gets his outs, but any hitter in this league is going to have a challenge
Yeah.
seeing 100 miles per hour in any part of the zone, and then the very next pitch seeing like 92 that has just crazy movement on his slider. Like that is an elite combo, and I'm so excited for what Edwin Diaz has in store in 2024.
Yeah, and as soon as he got that confidence back in that leg, in that knee, that unfortunately gave out on him last year, as soon as he got that confidence back and probably got it out of his mind, because if any athlete knows, when you get an injury and you come back, all you do is think about, oh, if I do this, it's going to pop, it's going to snap, right? I've had an ACL injury, I've had a surgery, I understand that, and it took me a while to get back on the baseball field and run, slide, make quick movements. As soon as you get that fear out of your mind and the confidence is there, I think you just back to normal, to what you were, at least to what they believe they are. And it looks like Edwin Diaz got that full confidence back. He has that leadership, and that confidence obviously grows on the team. Edwin Diaz with that confidence going on the mound, the team starts to feel confident. And you don't have to be the most talented to win the World Series. I think we've seen that enough, and make the playoffs and make a run. I think this confidence that Diaz shows is going to help this team come together, because it just seems right now, it seems like 2022 family-oriented team vibes, in my opinion. Like 2023, something was off. I don't know what it was from day one of spring training. If something felt off, I don't know if it was the disaster of the end of 2022, or it was just the mix and the vibe. I don't know what it was, but it seemed like the chemistry was never there. And we talked about this many times early on, even when the Mets were playing pretty decent in April and early May, that there was something off about this team. And I feel like that vibe, that chemistry, that team, I guess, energy is there, where I think the pressure is kind of off this team. And I guess that entails to, like, them not being favorites, or, kind of thinking as a favorite team to go to a World Series or make the playoffs. The pressure is off this team. And we all know when they don't have no pressure, they perform well. It's just a matter of when the pressure is turned back on, can they be the team that can continue their good performance when the pressure is on? So do you think Edwin Diaz with that confidence, let me get to this, team chemistry, team effort, team vibes, do you feel a different vibe this year in spring than last year?
I think it's too early to tell, because I think that'll really show itself like after a team starts to struggle, right? Because I think that even when Diaz went down last year in spring training, this fan base was still sort of up, like, yeah, that injury sucked, but we still have a great team on paper going into 2023. And then when sort of crap started to hit the fan, that's when the team's true colors really started to show themselves. And that's when we started to question like Marte's health, or I guess his attitude, if he really cares to be out there. We started to question Jeff McNeil, and like, really, is he going to get it together, because he was slamming his helmet, his bat after every sort of out that he was making. We started to question a lot about this team, and that's when the WFAN guys started to spew stupid rumors about Pete Alonso being the cancer in the clubhouse, stuff like that. That's been debunked. That's when you start to see the true colors of your team when things go south. I think it's too early to tell that. And I'm not going to say that solely having Edwin Diaz back is going to change that, but I think it's going to pay a lot of dividends. And we're starting to see that early on. Like, yes, you can already see that in spring training. Guys are playing looser. And people and players in the clubhouse have already said that it's a different energy. Now, that's just cliche talk, because they say that every year. I understand that. But I really do think Edwin Diaz is a major component of this clubhouse. And the key word that I think that we're missing here is just camaraderie, like camaraderie. Yes. And that's all across the board, because like I said, Diaz's presence does not just get felt like in that bullpen. The position players, the starting rotation, everybody has had high praise for Edwin Diaz. And I think that off the field kind of thing or in the clubhouse kind of vibe is just as important as the electricity that he brings with the trumpets out in the ninth inning, etc. So, yeah, I think that this low expectation could be a blessing in disguise for the New York Mets. And we've said that time and time again, like expectations are low. Nobody expects the Mets to do anything in the NL East. Maybe they can go and surprise some people. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you never know. Low pressure situations, low expectations. Let's wait and see what happens because we've been talking all this offseason. Who are we going to get? Who are we going to get? Are we going to get Yamamoto? Are we going to even try to make a bid at Ohtani? All that goes out the window. Like our spring training talks goes out the window. Once opening day starts, it's regular season time and it's put up or shut up time. And we're inching very close to that, just 10 days away.
Yep. And so you're saying the camaraderie is going to get tested in the middle of April when we have a 4-game series against the Braves, and the pressure is going to get turned up when the Braves are, they whip the Mets. It's the whipping boy. That's, it seems like that's what it's been over the last couple of years. So it's going to get tested rather quickly. They can't go into Atlanta and get knocked on their ass. And you know what? Oh, I hope they get knocked on their ass because I want to see them pick themselves back up. Because I think that was the problem in the end of 2022. Going into the playoffs, they never really got back up after that sucker punch. If they do get sucker punch, like I said, I'd love for them to sweep the Braves. But if they get knocked on their ass, if they get that blindside right hand and knocks them on their ass, can they get back up? Because that's the beast that they haven't beat yet. That's that last monster in a video game beast and that you have to beat. And if you keep on losing and you never pick yourself back up, it's hard to say this team can deal with that pressure of getting back on their feet. And I hope that's the case because that's going to tell me a lot about this core that I really have questions about growing a pair. Let's be honest. Like this is a core that has shown weakness, hasn't shown that energy that I guess you could say that I don't even know, like that attempt to get back up and get back on their feet and throw a next punch. They haven't shown that yet when they got knocked on their ass, Chris. So what do you think about that before we get to McNeil?
I think that, and that's a perfect segue to what I was just going to say. June and July were kind of bad for the Mets. Like a lot of players had down June and July's, right? Especially June. Like that was a terrible month, as it always seems to be. And the next player that we're going to be talking about here in this topic had a horrible middle of the season in June and July before he stepped it up in August and September. And that is Jeff McNeil. So when the Mets inevitably do get punched in the mouth, right? This team is going to have slumps, like as a team and individually. But those slumps can't extend to an entire month or an entire 2 months.
Yes.
We need to see them turn it around quicker and get back up, like you said, quicker. Like it's expected over the course of 162. These guys are going to falter. It happens. Things happen. Injuries pile up. How do you get back up? And how do you get back up quicker than you got back up last season? That's my main question.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, April's going to be a test. You got the 4-game series against the Braves in Atlanta, and you got that early West Coast trip to the Bay Area and LA against the Dodgers. So you got the Giants and Dodgers on the road at the end of April. And in the middle of April, you got the 4-game series in Atlanta. So it's going to be tested rather quickly. You're playing good teams here. So it's really going to be telling in April. I think that they need a really good – I don't think they need a great month of April, but a solid month of April where you go into May and be like, okay, we got over the West Coast trip. We dealt with Atlanta for the most part, and let's go about our business, regardless of them being 10 games over 500, 5 games over 500. Even if they're 500, I think you could say, well, that's not that. It could have been a lot worse. And I think that's where we are with this team at the moment. So Jeff McNeil played in the minor league game. He played 5 innings. He got 2 hits up the middle. He looked like the Jeff McNeil of old, just putting the bat on the ball, hitting them where they ain't. But when I tell you, if a guy bats 270, you can be like, wow, that's a pretty good average. But when it comes to Jeff McNeil, who has no power, who is not a big RBI run producing guy, doesn't really do anything well other than hit for well above average. Above 300 is where we need Jeff McNeil to be successful in this Mets lineup as currently constructed. We talked about this. Jeff McNeil doesn't do enough offensively well enough to bat 270, where if Pete Alonso hit 270, you're talking about MVP votes, hitting 45 home runs, 100 plus RBIs. Jeff McNeil's not going to hit those many home runs or even those getting anywhere near that RBI total. With Jeff McNeil, who is probably, hopefully healthy now, we need Jeff McNeil to bat over 300 because that's the most successful lineup currently constructed with Jeff McNeil. What do you think of Jeff McNeil? He's playing tomorrow against the Cardinals. His first time in a spring game with the Major League Club. 9 days until opening day when he actually is in the lineup tomorrow. Are you expecting good things for Jeff McNeil, or you're kind of on the fence with Jeff McNeil when it comes to him doing what he's supposed to do for this lineup?
So I'm kind of on the fence, and it's all due to the injury, right? We haven't seen Jeff McNeil as much as we would have wanted, following, I guess, like you said, a down year compared to his standards. But really, when you take a look at 270, really his only bad months, I guess, were June, July, where his numbers really dipped. He started off April, May decent, and then he really turned it on August, September last season, and he got the numbers back up, but it wasn't in crunch time. So everyone's like, yeah, I'll see you next year. But how does that elbow hold up? And Mike, coincidentally, talking about OG Anunoby's elbow, which I will be talking about tonight in the post game, seems to be an elbow issue going around in New York with Jeff McNeil and his partially torn UCL that he did not have surgically repaired. I don't know if the bicep soreness officially has been linked to that. I would imagine if it's in the same arm that with those two muscles / ligaments being very in close proximity, probably one has to do with the other. I'm expecting big things, but I'm on the fence because I just want to see if he's going to be ready to go early and often. We're seeing him in what? We didn't see him until the first minor league game a couple days ago. The Major League game, I think you said, is coming up. You said tomorrow he's playing in the game.
That's what they said, yeah, that's the plan.
It's a little bit late. You know what I mean? It's 9 days, almost 10 days, almost 9 days into opening day, till opening day. We'll see how he starts off. Like, this is a year that I want to see complete seasons out of everybody. And that means right on opening day. The same thing goes with Lindor. Same thing goes with everybody. Start off strong. That's what I want to see because I think that's what the Mets need. Like we've talked about this time and time again. The Mets need to start off strong to just put 2023 finally behind them. And it's going to be tough to do in April. So I know projections, and I'll probably make a podcast standalone episode about this, talking about McNeil's projections somewhere maybe tomorrow night or Wednesday morning. But I know Fangraphs is projecting him to bump up all of his statistics. But those projections are not enough for me. Like if he just lives up to those Fangraphs projections, it's not going to be enough. I think they're projecting him somewhere around 281, a 739 OPS, a 343 on base percentage. It's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it. If Jeff McNeil is not going to be a gap-to-gap hitter, saw him hit 39 doubles in 2022 compared to just 25 last year, that's where the OPS dipped. It's going to be bad news. We can't have another season of anything south of 750 in the OPS category, and anything under 300 at this point is a failure for Jeff McNeil. I will say that. Okay, 290, I'll give him some slack. I'll give him some leeway. But really, how is he providing and what is he providing for this team outside of those slap singles? That's what I want to see if he can get back to a gap-to-gap type of approach.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Jeff McNeil. And, Jeff McNeil, 300 plus hitter is 100% fine. Like that's what we need. No matter where he bats, if he bats second, 7, 8, 6, it doesn't really matter. If he bats over 300, this lineup is going to be a lot deeper and a lot better than people are giving him credit for. If he bats, maybe you can give him a little bit of leeway with 290, which I think is still not enough. only because of what this lineup is, the way it's constructed. It needs guys on base. It needs guys like a Jeff McNeil to be a gap-to-gap hitter, doubles machine. And, 290 does do that for the most part, but the best Mets lineup is where McNeil is hitting over 300 and Marte is hitting 270, 280. Those guys do that. I think this lineup's going to be fine. I think the pitching will be solid enough where we're going to win those ball games that are probably going to be close. And can we be honest? We're playing the Brewers. They're a team that traded their ace. Freddie Peralta's still there. Woodruff ain't pitching. Williams, their closer, is out with a stress fracture for 3 months. Could we destroy this Brewers team? Could we go out there and just beat their asses? They're not a good team. The Mets are better than them. They need to go out there and put their foot on their throats and not give them a chance. Right away, they got to score. And I think that's important for the Mets. We need Quintana to throw a 1-2-3 in and get the offense out there. I know I'm going a little bit ahead of myself, but again, excited since I got my tickets in my ballpark app for opening day. So I'm like giddy. I'm ready. So Jeff McNeil over 300. I think we're on board with that. All right, so let's get to the final thing. Me and Chris, obviously, we're doing the Amazing Mets pregame show starting in 2024, right when the season starts on opening day. We are also going to be collaborating on the PSF app, the Pro Sports Fan app, that I'm going to show you the logo in a second so you guys have an idea of what that is. Now, I did this last year with Tim Ryder a little bit. I also did it on my own where we did a lot of our live streams on the app during Mets games. We did pregame shows and everything like that. So I did a little bit of this, and Chris was also got notified by the CEO and all those guys that are running the PSF app. He did that. They got in touch with him, and he's going to be doing that. So me and Chris were like, we got to collab on this as well. And we're not only going to be doing it on the app, we're going to be simulcasting on YouTube on our channels as well. So when there's a pregame show, when there's a Met season preview, or whatever live stream during a game, we're going to be doing it together for the most part, as long as schedules work out, on the Pro Sports Fans app that you can download on Android or Apple or anything like that. So the PSF app, download it right now, guys, because me and Chris are going to be on YouTube, of course, but we're also going to be on this app doing shows, in-game shows. We're going to do season previews. We're going to do post-game shows, all that fun stuff on the app. So make sure you download the app so you can see me and Chris, and it only makes the app better when more people join. There's over about 600 Mets fans that join the Mets fan group, because each individual team from major sports has their own group. So when there's a live stream, you go into that group and you can watch me and Chris. You can watch other Mets media casters on there as well. So the Pro Sports Fans app, me and Chris are going to be collaborating on shows during the season, along with doing it on our YouTube channel. So, Chris, talk a little bit about the collaboration and what we're going to do, and whatever else you want to bring to the table before we call it a thing.
First off, can you hear me? I'm lagging a little bit. I just want to make sure that you can hear me.
Chris, you good?
Wait, can you hear me?
Chris, you good? I think we froze for a second. Let's see. Hold on. What's going on here? I think we broke down. What are we doing?
First off, am I back?
Yep, I get you now. I'm sorry. We both froze.
My
Right.
Yeah, I'm freezing
hear
all
you.
over the place. This is the perks with moving. The
I can hear
internet
you.
is
Yes.
up. Yeah, this is all fumbled up. So,
Uh-oh. I think we broke
yeah,
down, guys.
absolutely,
All right, so
absolutely.
I'm lagging a little bit too. I think we'll try to get Chris back as soon as possible. So we're gonna be doing a PSF app together. I think Chris is coming back. Give me a second, guys.
Wait,
I see
can
you.
you
I hear
hear
you.
me? Am I lagging or is Rob lagging? I'm trying to figure this out.
I do hear you though.
Oh, Rob's coming out choppy. Carlos
Chris, you
said.
good?
If you all can hear me, let me know because I am not hearing Rob as
Again, but
efficiently as
you
I
can talk
should.
and I'll
But
let you know.
nonetheless, I'm going to take it over here. The PSF app. Make sure you download the app. Like Rob said, I'm a little bit new to it. Rob is not new to it whatsoever. He's done work with them last season. It should be very fun. It's another way for you all to enjoy Mets content. Outside of just YouTube, a lot of good collaborations, a lot of other Mets content creators and other sports content creators in general. They got a great thing going on over there. Download the PSF app. And we're not just going to be doing pre-game live shows as well over there. And we're also going to be simulcasting over to YouTube, like Rob said, but we're going to be doing in-game streams, like where we give our live reactions. We're going to be giving post-game reactions and post-game shows. There's a lot of other things that we're going to be doing that's not only going to be on here on YouTube, but also the PSF app. And I apologize about the technical difficulties. I appreciate you working with us. Technology and the internet prevails sometimes, and there's only so much that we can do. But if you notice that I'm sort of looking in when the season starts off to my right and then also to my left, I'm going to be having a tripod set up. We're going to have both streams going. It's going to be a blast. And if you all like this collaboration with Rob and I, as always, make sure you keep subscribing and hitting that thumbs up because you're going to be seeing a lot more of us, both of our faces on the same screen, talking New York Mets all 2024 long. So make sure you go check out PSF. It's a neat little collaboration that we have going on, and I'm thankful to be brought on over there. It's going to be a blast, and I truly cannot wait for this season. I'm getting so excited just talking about it.
Yes, hopefully everybody can hear me and I don't sound like Max Headroom as Durant said in the chat. But if you guys can hear me, that's great. If you can't, you can just turn me off if you want. But don't forget PSF app, download it now. You're gonna get me and Chris together collaborating on that and also on the Amazing Mets pregame show. I'm trying to Chris, I'm trying to actually get a poster ready that says the Amazing Mets pregame show, and I'm hoping to bring it on the 30th to to the tailgate to do our show, and we'll have it behind. I'm gonna try to get it in time. I custom made it and everything. If it comes in time, great. If it doesn't, well, I'll fold it up and wait for next time. But it was always a good show. Another Met Spring Training Talk live here. We talked about Quintana. We talked about Vientos. To the cows come home. I talked about JD Martinez that nobody wants to hear anymore. McNeil, Diaz, everything 10 days away until opening day. Chris, your final thoughts and let everybody know what you're going to be doing with your channel.
Yeah, my final thoughts is I'm just so excited about this season. I can't wait to finally transition from our hot stove lives and our spring training lives over to our pregame live shows, our postgame live shows, and even our in-game live shows. This is where the season really takes off, and this is where it matters the most. It's put up or shut up time. Obviously, with everything that we've been talking about this offseason, it's been sort of up and down and a roller coaster to figure out how this season's going to go. But I have high expectations, and I don't know if that's just my heart talking because I love this team so much, or it's my head talking because I truly think this team is going to be better than everyone's giving them credit for. I have high expectations, and I just can't wait to not only see the New York Mets, but also see us as a collaboration, as content creators, grow and for people in the chat to continue to get better experiences, whether it's on here, whether you go and sign up for PSF, wherever you get your content from us, it's going to be such a great ride, and I cannot wait for it. Things I'm going to be doing with my channel, obviously regular scheduled programming, True Mets Talk. I'm going to be doing my post-game recap live tomorrow after the Mets game. So tune in around maybe 9:15 p.m.-ish. We'll talk about the game. We'll talk about some instant reactions, and we'll just talk about the Mets in general on that live stream. Rob, if you're down, if you're free, you can join me as well. My door's always open to that. But nonetheless, also doing a Knicks post-game live tonight. If you're a Knicks fan, obviously some tough news with OG Anunoby, but we'll be doing a live stream for that tonight as well. Regular scheduled programming, and I'll be releasing probably a pre-recorded episode about Jeff McNeil. It's not going to wow you. It's not going to be way too in-depth about the ins and outs of what went wrong for Jeff McNeil last year, but we're going to talk a little bit about Jeff McNeil updates, and I'll even touch on it on my live stream tomorrow, and we'll talk about just the majority of the video will be projections and what we can expect out of Jeff McNeil in 2024. But other than that, as always, hit that thumbs up on both streams. It's being streamed to both my YouTube and Rob's YouTube. Hit the thumbs up on both, and obviously keep subscribing. 11 subscribers away from 600. As soon as I hit 600, we'll be giving away free merch on the channel. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you guys know what to do. Head over to CP's Mets and Knicks, the channel, Chris's channel. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Hit on that like button. The likes are important, guys, as you well know. So once again, guys, make sure you tune in to the PSF app when the season starts. Tune into the collaborations that me and Chris are doing throughout the season. The Amazing Mets pregame show is going to debut on opening day 2024, March 28th. So make sure you tune in. So everybody, great job in the chat, guys. Keeping with us. The Wi-Fi is always undefeated. We do the best we can, but we got Mets baseball in 9.5 days. I'm going to go with 9.5 days now since it's almost 9 o'clock at night. So check out Chris tonight with his post-game Knicks show tonight, and let's see if the Knicks get a win. But with that said, everybody have a great night. Let's go Mets. Chris, have a great night, buddy. See you next time, guys. Good night.
Peace. Let's go Mets.
Cause we got ourselves a ball, put the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell, give 'em a hand, and let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring